Unbelievable revelation, the hidden connection between her life-changing journey and her boss. Sarah looked at the clock on the wall, 11:47 p.m., and felt the weight of another long day pressing down on her shoulders. She had just finished cleaning the offices, every sweep of her cloth laden with the exhaustion of waitressing at the diner earlier that day. But tonight, her eyes were glued to the thick textbook sprawled across her desk, its pages illuminated by the flickering light of an old lamp. Research had become her solace, a welcome escape from a world riddled with uncertainty. Yet, as the words swirled in her mind, one truth gnawed at her: was she fooling herself? The unwavering commitment to provide for Lily, her 10-year-old daughter, and her relentless ambition to excel in school, could she genuinely pursue both? She shuddered at the thought of letting Lily down. In her head, thoughts raced like a blizzard, cold and unrelenting. The good grades she had fought for were currently overshadowed by an unsettling decision. Mr. Thompson, her boss, had offered her an opportunity to collaborate on a significant research project that could change everything for them both. The prospect of working alongside a man revered in the corporate world sent waves of anticipation through her, but also terror. He had come from a background not unlike hers, dusty roads and difficult choices, but he was a figure of authority. What did it mean for someone like her, scrubbing floors and serving coffee, to partner with someone so entwined in privilege? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The stakes heightened. She couldn't shake the feeling of impending scrutiny on all sides. Every moment she spent considering the project felt like a gamble steeped in risk. Guilt twisted in her gut. What if pursuing this led to an opportunity that drew her away from home? A flashback of Lily's face, the brightness fading each time her mother seemed distracted, spurred a quick pang across Sarah's heart. Yet when she noticed the disparity between their lives, the privilege other students enjoyed at the university, sipping lattes and mingling effortlessly, her frustration simmered. Could she ever have a seat at that table? The tension peaked when the revelation struck like thunder. Mr. Thompson, despite his success, had been wronged in a way that mirrored her struggles, his innovative ideas overshadowed by those he trusted, colleagues who ignored his humble beginnings. The injustice stirred something fierce in her. Fueled by empathy, would it be her fight for recognition or his? A tremor ran through her as the moral dilemma ignited, a choice between self-preservation and standing up against a broken system they both understood too well. Here laid the crossroads, each path ripe with potential but fraught with peril. As she faced her reflection in the darkened glass of the office window, a lone figure, worn down yet resilient, the question hung in the air, heavy as winter snow: did she possess the bravery to challenge the very foundation that kept people like her trapped? Desperation quaked in her muscles while determination brushed against her spirit. Whatever decision she made would ripple through their lives. With the weight of the world resting so precariously on her shoulders, Sarah stood on the brink of empowerment, heart pounding and spirit blazing. The morning light spilled into the office, casting soft shadows on the cluttered desk where Sarah sat, poised between her dreams and her reality. She had taken the leap and accepted Mr. Thompson's offer. The official email bearing her name as a co-researcher gleamed on her screen, a promise and a challenge wrapped into one. But the thrill was muted by the gnawing worry that lacked any sign of relief. As she stared at the blinking cursor, she could already sense the shift in her life. Every new project or discussion would require her to navigate unknown waters. The previous evening's bravado had transformed overnight into apprehension. Was she capable of blending into this world of intellect and ambition while still being the steady anchor for Lily? The question dangled overhead, heavy and persistent. Diving into the project, Sarah discovered that preparation would be crucial. The initiation meeting with Mr. Thompson and the rest of the team was set for the following week. They would discuss strategies and frameworks, yet the thought of facing a roomful of distinguished colleagues made her palms sweat. She recalled an article she had read about imposter syndrome, a phenomenon that haunted many, where success seemed unearned. A sense of smallness seeped into her thoughts. What if they saw through her? What if they noticed her background, her stumbles, and her scars? In a moment of focus driven by both fear and resolve, she pulled up the project brief, painstakingly jotting down notes, not merely about the content but about her contributions. This project encompassed various disciplines: data analysis, case studies, and financial assessments, each a piece of a puzzle that felt daunting to solve. Yet, as she mapped out her understanding, a flicker of confidence stirred within her. She realized she had schooled herself on many topics well before this moment. Engaging in discussions with her peers online for clarification, each exchanged message nudged her closer to familiarity. The insight from friendly replies reassured her that she had a voice worth hearing. She couldn't see them, but she could imagine their warmth reflected through the screen, urging her onward. And then came the moment that hit hardest. She shared her thoughts on a particular analysis of an industry trend, and two colleagues voiced their agreement, framing it as a significant perspective. It felt exhilarating. Yet beneath the surface, insecurities shadowed her progress. Amid the triumph, she struggled to ignore the pit of fear that lurked, whispering questions of worthiness at every turn. Anyone could simulate confidence, but was she truly ready for this new identity as a professional academic? Could she find her voice in an environment that thrived on experience? The thought raised an unsettling chill. As the meeting drew closer, a gnawing fear took shape. Mr. Thompson's reputation weighed on her. He wouldn't want a sinking ship, and the pressures of the corporate ladder felt unbearable. If she faltered, who would catch her? The vision of Lily pushed through her momentary paralysis, reminding her of the stakes. She had to be the role model, not just for her daughter, but for herself. With renewed determination, Sarah clicked on the calendar. She saw the date looming ahead. She would prepare meticulously, dive deeper into the data, and learn the trends. It didn't end there. She would meet with Mr. Thompson ahead of time, strategizing how to harness her background into strengths. All her thoughts coalesced into one driving idea: clarity and preparation could fortify her stance in the unknown. As the meeting drew closer, a shift occurred, a realization that this was not a solitary endeavor. As daunting as it was, she was stepping into her journey of growth, aligning her past hardships and current hopes into a cohesive future. But at that moment, a notification pinged from her phone, a message from Mr. Thompson, asking if they could meet one-on-one before the team meeting. The tone industry neutral, but the statement sent a pulse of alarm through her body. What did he want? Would he provide support, or was this the opening she feared? A moment to critique. Sarah felt the flutter of uncertainty in her stomach intensify. The confrontation would soon be upon her. Would she meet the challenge head-on, or would the weight of expectation crush her spirit? Only time would tell. In the solitude of her office, Sarah paced the small space, her heart racing at the prospect of her impending meeting with Mr. Thompson. Each step echoed her inner turmoil, a clash between her aspirations and self-doubt. The glowing screen of her computer blurred in the shadows of her worry, thoughts circled like hawks, poised to dive. His prompt for a one-on-one meeting could be generous support or a critical evaluation, the latter striking fear more profound than she cared to admit. She needed a plan, something to anchor her flailing confidence amid surging uncertainties. Taking a deep breath, Sarah grabbed her notebook, flipping through pages filled with hastily scribbled notes and diagrams. Each annotation bore testimony to her preparation, her attempts to grasp the complexity of the project looming ahead. But within the pages lay a stark truth, one she was hesitant to confront. Despite her diligent efforts, she felt like an outsider in her own professional environment. Her mind drifted back to moments of solidarity she had fostered through online discussions. How could those exchanges offer such warmth while the prospect of facing Mr. Thompson felt so isolating? Perhaps it was time to channel that camaraderie. She decided she would approach the meeting like the conversations she had held, engaging, honest, and open to collaboration. Clarity was her ally. Yet, buried beneath that resolve lurked an unsettling thought. Would her perceived shortcomings overshadow any insights she had to share? Determined to ready herself for this encounter, Sarah set up her computer and began drafting topics to discuss. What if she framed her preparations as avenues for growth rather than measurable limits of her abilities? This meeting wasn't about showcasing perfection, it was about fostering dialogue, seeking guidance, and presenting her perspectives. When the time finally arrived, she felt the weight of the glass door separating her from Mr. Thompson's office. She hesitated, inhaling deeply before crossing the threshold. To her surprise, the atmosphere inside was lighter than she had anticipated, the room filled with natural light streaming through large windows. Mr. Thompson was seated, a welcoming demeanor replacing the intimidating figure she had conjured in her mind. "Sarah. Thank you for joining me," he said, his voice warm and steady. "I know you have been working hard on the project. I wanted to discuss a few aspects and see how I can support you before the team meeting." At that moment, something shifted within her. The poised, mouthpiece of critique she had imagined vanished, replaced by a collaborative spirit. They spoke for an hour, exchanging ideas, and much to her surprise, Mr. Thompson offered not just guidance but validation of her contributions. He expressed that her unique perspective could enrich their work, making it resonate in ways that would expand the project's scope. "What you may perceive as a limitation is, in fact, an asset," he stated, leaning forward, a look of sincerity etched across his face. "Your life experiences have lent you insights that are rare in this field. Embrace them." In this environment of encouragement, Sarah felt the walls of anxiety begin to crumble. She didn't just hear his words, she found strength in them. This wasn't merely about needing approval, it was about evolving into someone who could carve her path with authenticity. As she left his office, she carried with her a kernel of empowerment, a newfound recognition of her worth both as a researcher and as a mother. Yet, even amid the growing confidence, a troubling thought gnawed at her, a reflection of what she had learned about herself during this encounter. What if this recognition came at a cost? The clarity of her professional journey now came with the responsibility of exposing her vulnerabilities. Could she sustain this self-acceptance against the tide of skepticism that still lingered in her mind? Enhancing her capabilities would lead her to confront an essential truth about her identity, the stakes becoming higher. In light of this internal conflict, she left the office feeling emboldened yet uncertain, a balancing act between authenticity and the fear of judgment. Just as hope surged, so did the weight of expectation. As the week of the team meeting approached, Sarah knew one thing: she was standing at a crossroads that held the potential for transformation. The next challenge loomed closer than ever, and with it, the realization that to truly embrace her journey, she must confront the shadows that whispered doubts. Then came another ping on her phone, an invitation to an informal team lunch from Mr. Thompson. Curiosity mingled with anxiety. Could this social engagement galvanize her connections further, or would it unveil more insecurities? The tension stirred anew as a fresh wave of uncertainty settled in her chest. Would this new opportunity propel her forward, or would she find herself grappling with the realities of her chosen path? The days blurred into one another as Sarah prepared for the team lunch. Each morning, she told herself to be brave, to embrace this new opportunity with the same spirit she had summoned for her meeting with Mr. Thompson. Yet, line after line in her journal mirrored the same theme: excitement intertwined with dread. The potential for connection taunted her, while the risk of exposure loomed large. As she walked into the cafe where the lunch was set to occur, she felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety knotting her stomach. The soft buzz of conversation enveloped her, a cacophony that both welcomed and overwhelmed her. Mr. Thompson had mentioned that a few other team members would join, but she could not help wondering how her presence would be perceived. Would they welcome her insights, or see her as an imposter? Seating herself at a round table, she noticed how the others were engaged in light banter, laughter punctuating their easy exchanges. As Mr. Thompson approached, his approachable demeanor eased some of her tension. "Hey, glad you made it," he said, indicating a seat next to him, creating an instant sense of inclusion. Yet as the lunch progressed, she found herself drawn into the very insecurities she hoped to mitigate. For every clever anecdote others offered, a voice in her head whispered that she should stay silent, far removed from engaging in the fluid flow of conversation. She would divulge her thoughts only if it was absolutely necessary, she decided, weighing each potential contribution against her fear of judgment. But in those moments of discomfort, another truth emerged, a subtle realization, rooted deep within. While she observed her colleagues share their narratives comfortably, each revelation echoed familiar plights she, too, had experienced. When they joked about balancing challenging projects with family obligations, she recognized her own struggle, a blend of chaos and fulfillment. A sudden spark ignited. If they struggled with similar challenges, could they not also appreciate her unique perspective? Taking a gulp of her drink, she resolved to offer a piece of herself, a casual comedic observation about the unpredictable nature of juggling deadlines and school events. Her heart raced as she uttered the words, yet to her surprise, laughter erupted. Instant warmth poured over the table, and she felt each chuckle resonate with understanding. Encouraged, Sarah leaned in further, sharing anecdotes from her own path, the brutal nights of prepping presentations while tending to a sick child, and the moments when she had doubted whether she could maintain both worlds with grace. The more she spoke, the more the atmosphere shifted, casual heads nodded in response to her vulnerability. With each shared laugh sharing, she discovered not just commonality but also a new comfort in her identity within the team. It wasn't merely about justifying her presence, it was about affirming that she belonged there, amongst individuals navigating life's complexities along with her. As lunch continued, her initial fear transformed into empowerment. Mr. Thompson caught her eye several times, pride evident in his expression, as though her stories mattered beyond that single gathering. With each passing exchange, Sarah recognized the power of vulnerability, not as a weakness but as an authentic bridge to connection. Yet, as the group began to disperse, a chilling thought danced at the periphery of her mind: what if this newfound camaraderie was ephemeral? Would the honesty she shared be twisted into a fragile identity? How long could she maintain this precious space of unguarded openness before skepticism returned? A quiet resolve settled within her. The dynamic she had witnessed, a blend of support, humor, and personal connection, was not merely a phase, it could become an integral part of her career journey. She had tasted the possibility of embracing her authentic self in this professional environment, but it would require courage and consistent honesty to keep that flame alive. Just as she gathered her belongings, a message pinged. On her phone, Mr. Thompson had sent a text. "I'd like to talk more about your insights, especially as we approach the next project. Let us meet next week." Her heart raced. This invitation was both exhilarating and terrifying. She was at a precipice. The next step could either deepen her engagement or expose her vulnerabilities further. The prospect of leaning into this potential growth ignited both eagerness and anxiety within her. Would she seize this moment to truly integrate into her role and harness her strengths, or would she let fear dictate her choices yet again? The morning of her meeting with Mr. Thompson loomed like a distant storm on the horizon, both exciting and foreboding. Sarah scrolled through her notes, tapping her fingers anxiously against the desk, contemplating the insights she planned to share. Each point she highlighted seemed vital, yet a part of her hesitated. Would Mr. Thompson truly value her perspective, or was she setting herself up for another round of self-doubt? As she walked into the office, the warm sunlight streaming through the windows felt inviting, but her pulse quickened with the weight of her upcoming conversation. She could feel the eyes of her coworkers darting to her as she passed them by. The gentle hum of conversations now transformed into a piercing interrogation of her self-worth. Pushing through the door to Mr. Thompson's office, she found him seated, reviewing documents with a calm demeanor. "Sarah. Great to see you," he beamed, his enthusiasm immediately diffusing some of her tension. "I'm really looking forward to our chat about the upcoming project." "Thank you," she said, trying to match his positivity while her palms grew clammy. She settled into the chair opposite him, feeling the weight of expectation settle over her like a thick blanket. As they started discussing the project, Sarah found herself alternating between engaging confidently and internal chiding for any missteps. The concept she had worked on seemed promising, and she was ready to lay it all out. "I think a fresh approach could improve our outreach," she began, watching his expression change from casual interest to focused attention. "I agree," he replied, scribbling down notes with purpose. "Your viewpoint on combining data analytics with creative strategy could take us further than we've gone before." A spark of pride flickered within her. Maybe her contributions truly mattered, yet as the conversation deepened, Sarah felt a familiar tide rising. What if Mr. Thompson only praised her to fill a void of kindness? Questions about her suitability began to seep in again, anything but confident. Could she voice her suggestions without sounding like an imposter? Struggling with self-doubt, she seized onto Mr. Thompson's enthusiastic responses, using them as a lifeline to keep her afloat. As the discussion flowed, something stirred in her mind, a brief yet profound revelation. She was paralleling his excitement not just out of obligation but out of genuine passion. This moment belonged to her just as much as it did to him. Yet, just as she began to feel grounded, Mr. Thompson proposed a challenge that knocked the air from her lungs. "I'd like to feature you in our next team meeting. Share your thoughts on this approach. It could really inspire the whole team," he suggested with a no-nonsense gravity. The thought of standing before her colleagues, revisiting the openness she had felt at lunch, collided violently with the fearful whispers in her mind. What if sharing her ideas confirmed all her insecurities? The trembling in her hands indicated the answer before she had the chance to voice it. I'm not sure I'm ready for that," she stammered, immediately sensing the way his eyes narrowed slightly. "Why not?" he challenged softly, but with undeniable encouragement. "You mentioned earlier that you've faced challenges with family while managing professional duties. That kind of resilience is what can resonate with others." His words struck a nerve deep within her. Why would she hold back the very truth that could empower her and, perhaps, others? Suddenly, the meeting was not merely a query, it was a pivotal moment. "Okay," Sarah breathed deeply, a decision hardening within her. "I'll do it." "Great." He beamed, leaning back with an approving nod. "I'll back you up, we'll have a dry run before then." As they discussed logistics, Sarah felt both the rush of adrenaline and a daunting weight on her shoulders. This was to be her defining moment. Yet beneath this newfound resolve, a flicker of fear nagged at her. What would it mean if she failed? By the time their meeting concluded, Sarah stood at a crossroads. She hadn't anticipated. Would she emerge as a leader despite her insecurities, or would she choose to retreat into the old comfortable shadows of doubt? After leaving Mr. Thompson's office, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was teetering on the edge of something extraordinary or utterly terrifying. The stakes had been raised, and just as she began to embrace her role, a thought loomed larger than her excitement. The necessity to confront her own fears head-on was urgent. Back at her desk, determination surged within her. She realized that to truly develop, facing this moment filled with uncertainty was essential. As she opened her journal, she penned down her thoughts. This was a catalyst for her journey. "Tomorrow, I'll not only share my ideas but my story." Just as she finished reflecting on her resolve, a picture on her phone lit up with an incoming message from her mentor. "Can we chat after the meeting? I have something crucial to share that could change everything." A chill swept over her. What could it possibly be? Was it about the project, or perhaps about the journey she was starting? The ground beneath her felt shaky, and her heart raced at the thought of the secret still buried within her path. The morning of her presentation arrived with an unexpected clarity. The air felt different, electric with a mix of anticipation and urgency. Sarah had spent hours rehearsing, not just the content, but how she would position herself resilient, authoritative, and unapologetically herself. She stood before the mirror in her small apartment, adjusting her blazer. Confidence bloomed within her, painted across her reflection, mirroring the growth she had felt since that pivotal meeting with Mr. Thompson. Yet as she stepped into the office, doubts flickered like shadows. The bustling atmosphere felt more alive, but each familiar face sent a shiver of anxiety through her. Sarah could hear the muted conversations morph into an unyielding drumbeat against her resolve. Would they resonate with her message? Would they accept her as a voice among them? The meeting room was filled with energy, and as she entered, all eyes turned to her. Mr. Thompson smiled reassuringly while assigning her a seat at the head of the table, an unspoken gesture of faith in her. "All right, everyone, I hope you're ready to be inspired," he said, gesturing toward her. It was the moment Sarah had awaited with both eagerness and dread. Taking a deep breath, she began. Thank you, everyone, for giving me the opportunity today. I'm excited to share some ideas that have been evolving in my mind. She paused to reclaim her composure, sensing the weight of their collective attention. Each face around the table offered an encouragement she desperately needed. As she delved into her proposed strategies, she noticed the subtle nods of agreement, the focused expressions that interplayed with curiosity. With each passing moment, her confidence grew, yet a nagging thought persisted. This could all unravel before her eyes. Would their previous doubts be resurrected in her weakness? What inspired this approach? A colleague asked, his tone inviting yet probing. The question hung in the air, causing her pulse to race. She hesitated, her mind racing back to the personal challenges she had faced and how they shaped her perspective. This moment was her chance. Would she allow her vulnerability to emerge, or hide behind a veil of professionalism? The inspiration comes from resilience, she began slowly, eyeing Mr. Thompson's encouraging nod. In managing the chaos of my personal life and family responsibilities, I've learned that being adaptable is key. Our audience wants connection, not just information. People want to feel heard. Her voice steadied as she continued, sharing poignant anecdotes and insights that tied her experience to the presented strategies. No longer suffocated by self-doubt, she transformed her narrative into one that encapsulated the passion for her work. Watching her colleagues engage with her words ignited an undeniable spark inside her. As the meeting drew to a close, the atmosphere shifted from mere collegial obligation to one of shared understanding. Mr. Thompson stood up, clapping his hands together. That was excellent, Sarah. Your story is as compelling as your analysis. I think you'll find that this team is ready for a more relatable approach. The applause reverberated in her ears, yet she was caught in a storm of exhilaration and fear. Had she really done it? Had she opened up enough to allow others to connect with her story? The remnants of her insecurities whispered assurances that this newly discovered voice must be used more often. Later that day, as she prepared to meet with her mentor, a sense of urgency coursed through her. The text message had been curt yet charged with significance. The weight of what he might say loomed large. In the midst of her triumph, she felt a familiar tremor of insecurity. Was there more to her journey than she had realized? As she entered the cafe where they agreed to meet, she grasped her notebook tightly, a physical manifestation of her thoughts and emotions. The coffee shop buzzed with activity, but her focus narrowed to the doorway. There he stood, her mentor, with a serious expression that sent her heart racing. Sarah. Sit down. There is something important we need to discuss, he stated, taking the lead even before she settled into her chair. What could it be? The ground beneath her felt unsteady again, as if teetering between triumph and the potential unraveling of her identity. She searched his gaze, willing him to reveal a moment of clarity amid the apprehension. The secrets of her past, intertwined with her professional journey, were about to be laid bare. But what was the depth of this connection? Every second stretched on a thread of uncertainty as he sighed deeply, preparing to unveil something that would forever alter her understanding of herself. All her hard work, her emotional awakening, hinged on the revelation that was about to come. Sarah, he began, leaning forward, there's a reason I called you here today. Something about your presentation reminded me of my early career struggles. She felt a knot tighten in her stomach. The urgency in his voice hinted at something profound, perhaps even unsettling. Is this about what I shared? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. That he nodded slowly. Yes. It's about resilience, yes, but also the weight of our moments, those defining experiences that can either break us or make us stronger. Sarah shifted in her seat, forcing herself to meet his gaze, which held a depth that had always fascinated her. What do you mean? Her mentor released a heavy sigh. You see, the story you told in the meeting was more than just about professional strategies. It resonated with a truth that many people experience but rarely articulate: the struggle to find balance amid chaos. The realization struck her, but his next words were like cold water splashed across her face. My own journey wasn't solely professional. It was intertwined with personal challenges that shaped my path. I had a lot to overcome, just like you. That's why I wanted to share something important today. Her heart raced. What does this have to do with me? He hesitated. When I first started in this field, I was at my lowest. I lost my parents in a tragic accident, and it was my mentor who took me under his wing. That mentor, Sarah, he was your father. She recoiled, the world narrowing until only his words remained. What? My father? The room spun, her mind racing to connect the dots. She had lost her father years ago, a figure shrouded in both admiration and unresolved questions. The implications of his revelation sought to pull her apart. We worked together in the early stages of our careers. He mentioned you to me. I didn't know you at the time, but he believed you would have the strength to overcome obstacles he faced. She drew a shaky breath. I don't understand. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to impose. I thought perhaps our connection should come from your achievements, not just from what your father had left behind. But watching you today, it illuminated something. You have his spirit. A surge of emotions clawed inside her. Recognition of her father's struggles, his dreams for her, now dangled before her. The legacy left behind was a weight and a gift, one that she had to learn to carry. Could she embody that resilience he had believed in? Your father taught me that resilience is a choice, her mentor continued, and you have to make it for yourself. Your presentation today is just the beginning. You have a voice that can inspire change, just like your father's did. Uncertainty churned within her. The burden of expectation felt heavy, but something else shimmered through, an invitation to embrace the power of her past. What do I do now? He smiled gently. You keep moving forward. Use this connection as fuel, not as a shadow. Mentor others, just as your father did for me. Show them the way through your story. The cafe hummed with the quiet cacophony of lives intertwined, each unglimpsed story echoing with significance. Sarah sat there, grappling with her father's legacy and the mantle it now posed upon her shoulders. The heart of her professional journey was no longer a solitary quest, it was bound by history, lineage, and a call towards something greater, yet with the excitement brimmed a new wave of anxiety. What would be required of her now? How would she navigate this newfound burden? Her mind swirled with questions, yet amidst the chaos, a flicker of clarity emerged. Can you help me? She asked, the words spilling out, full of intent. Absolutely, Sarah. We'll figure it out together. As the conversation deepened, she wondered what it meant to step into her father's shoes, and whether she could carve a new path while honoring the one he left behind. This nexus of the past and present opened a door filled with promise, but it also loomed ominously with expectations not yet defined. Sarah realized that her journey was far from over, it had merely begun. With a dawning urgency within the revelation, she felt the familiar mixture of fear and determination. There was a choice she would have to make about how she would rise to meet the demands of this legacy. And deep inside, she knew it was time to confront the shadows of her past and embrace the narrative waiting to unfold. Would she accept the sunlit path of possibility ahead, or would she collapse beneath the weight of expectation? The moment approached where she would be forced to face not just her lineage, but also her own identity and the competencies yet undiscovered within her. Sarah left the cafe with her mind racing. The revelation about her father had shattered her previous notion of self, leaving fragments of doubt and determination swirling in her thoughts. Who was she beyond his legacy? The cold air brushed against her cheeks, but it did little to quell the heat of her internal conflict. Every step felt like a challenge against the weight of expectation and the promise of possibility. The next day at the office, she arrived early, needing to process both the burden and the clarity of her father's influence. As she settled at her desk, the familiar hum of emails and ringing phones surrounded her, grounding her in the present. Yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that her work had always been tinged with his shadow, a mix of inspiration and pressure that now felt magnified. Morning, Sarah. Came a cheerful voice from a colleague, pulling her from her reverie. She glanced up, forcing a smile, but what she really wanted was to retreat into the depths of her thoughts. Hey! Ready for the weekly strategy meeting? With a curt nod, she mentally braced herself. This was her chance to take the lead, but the stakes felt higher now. Could she channel her father's spirit, turn her uncertainty into strength, and inspire others all at once? As the meeting commenced, her mentor laid the groundwork, presenting ideas that sparked animated discussion. Sarah listened, calculating her contributions carefully. But what would she say? She felt the weight of the room's expectation not merely for good ideas but for the meaningful voice that would embody her father's legacy. Then, it hit her. "I'd like to propose a new approach," she said, her voice steadying. The room quieted, every eye trained on her. Breakthrough moments like this had always intimidated her, but now, standing at this juncture between past and present, she felt emboldened. She outlined a strategy that embraced collaboration and inclusivity, nudging the team toward innovation rather than hierarchy. The passion in her tone surprised even her. "Wow, that's fresh," her teammate remarked, nodding vigorously. A cascade of agreement followed, igniting a spirited debate about how to execute her vision. The energy in the room shifted, and for the first time, Sarah's ideas felt not just accepted but celebrated. As the meeting wrapped, she found herself enveloped by a congratulatory atmosphere, but beneath the praise lay an unsettling undercurrent. Had she validated herself, or merely lived in the reflection of her father's achievements? The promise of new beginnings mingled with self-doubt. Back at her desk, she prepared notes for her next steps, pushing her feelings aside to focus on execution. Yet, another voice whispered reminders of her fear, the fear of disappointing both her father's memory and herself. It coiled within her, festering silently. Days turned into weeks, her workspace transforming into a hub of heightened collaboration and animated discussions. She actively sought mentorship opportunities for others, trying to guide them the way her father had guided his peers. But with every mentee she took on, the pressure compounded. "Sarah," her mentor called on one particularly chaotic day, "how are you managing all of this?" She paused, an awkward silence filling the space. "I'm good. Just busy juggling everything," she replied, but the lie felt fragile. The ebbs and flows of her motivation seemed unpredictable, often caught between excitement and paralyzing fear. "Remember," he said, leaning back in his chair, "vulnerability is part of resilience. Don't hesitate to lean on the team or me." His words echoed against the walls of her mind, juxtaposed against the facade she wore. Could she allow herself to admit she was struggling, or would that unravel everything she had built? The stark realization hit her hard. To honor her father's legacy, she needed to accept her own vulnerabilities. After work, she sought solace in the quiet of her apartment. The light filtering through the blinds cast striped shadows across her desk, creating patterns that felt like choices. Options that could lead her either closer to her father's spirit or deeper into self-doubt. With her father's spirit whispering encouragement, she grabbed a pen, determined to confront her fears. What would it mean to share her struggles with others, to expose her vulnerabilities while still upholding the example set by her father? Could she embrace a new definition of resilience, a harmony of strength and authenticity? As she contemplated her next steps, a decision loomed large on the horizon. The time had come to face not only her past but her insecurities. Would she allow her journey to be honest and inclusive, offering others a glimpse into her truth? The final question hung in the air, a potent challenge waiting to be articulated. Was she ready to confront the whispers of self-doubt and rise as the leader she aspired to be, or would fear continue to hold her back? The next day, Sarah walked through the office doors with a pulse of determination coursing through her veins. The weight of expectation didn't simply hang overhead like a cloud, it transformed into fuel that ignited a fierce resolve within her. There was a growing clarity that this journey was about more than just her father's legacy. It was about carving out her own identity amidst the echoes of the past. As the morning unfolded, the flurry of her team buzzing around her felt different. She had orchestrated a new dynamic, and the collaborative spirit was tangible. Colleagues approached her with ideas and suggestions, and for the first time, instead of feeling threatened, Sarah felt empowered. Their enthusiasm stirred something deeper within. She realized she was no longer just reflecting her father's brilliance, she was contributing her own. "Sarah, do you have a moment?" A voice broke through her thoughts. It was Daniel, a junior colleague whose progress she had been actively mentoring. There was a spark in his eyes that reminded her of her own early days, feeling the pressure of expectations. "Of course," she replied, motioning for him to join her at her desk. "I wanted to discuss my project. I'm hoping to implement some ideas you shared during our last meeting." He fidgeted with the papers in his hands. "But I'm a bit nervous. It feels so big." His struggle resonated with her. Instead of offering the enthusiastic pep talk she would have typically given, something deeper compelled her to share her own vulnerabilities. "You know, Daniel, I've felt that too," she started, her voice softening. "There are days I wonder if I'm capable of living up to the expectations here of my father's legacy." His eyes widened, surprise mingling with understanding. "Really?" "Yes, really," she continued, her heart racing slightly. "But I've come to realize that sharing those struggles doesn't weaken us. It connects us. It builds a foundation for real growth." A flicker of insight crossed Daniel's face. "So, it's okay to be unsure. And to ask for help." "Absolutely," she affirmed, a weight lifting from her chest. In that moment, she recognized an unexpected strength, a connection forged through authenticity that surpassed the pressures of competition. The following weeks urged Sarah further along her path of leadership. With each challenging conversation she opened, she noticed a ripple effect. Colleagues began sharing their own doubts and experiences. A natural vulnerability emerged alongside creative discussions. It was as if her willingness to embrace uncertainty had invited others to step out of their shadows as well, yet, lurking beneath the surface was a nagging thought. What if the openness she cultivated was a deception, one that could shatter her ambition? Each time she engaged in these dialogues, a voice whispered that by revealing her flaws, she risked her father's reputation. Would his legacy stand resolute, or would it dissipate like a summer breeze? Determined to confront this internal conflict, Sarah decided to take a bold step. She called for a team meeting, a gathering where she could formally acknowledge the evolving dynamics and the need for authenticity. She prepared herself, revisiting the notes she had crafted during moments of solitude. They echoed her battles, but they also mirrored the exciting potential waiting to be unleashed. As the meeting began and her colleagues settled, adrenaline pulsed through her. This was her chance. With each word she spoke, she felt a fusion of fear and exhilaration coursing through her limbs. She addressed not just the strategies moving forward but the importance of owning one's vulnerabilities as a part of personal and collective growth. The room fell silent, absorbing her words like a sponge. But Sarah was acutely aware of the beasts lurking in the silence, the judgment, the skepticism, the questioning of her authority. She wasn't just sharing her journey, she was laying her truth bare for scrutiny. In that moment, there was no turning back. The tension thickened, thick enough to feel almost suffocating, but just as she prepared for the next question, a sudden understanding washed over her. The vulnerability she had embraced was actually a cornerstone of leadership. As the meeting wrapped up, she caught her mentor's gaze across the table. He appeared impressed, but his expression remained unreadable, an opaque layer that made her pulse quicken. Had she crossed a line? Had she risked too much? As she walked back to her desk, apprehensions swirled in her mind. Could she continue to cultivate an environment of honesty without the fear of judgment undermining her authority? Unbeknownst to her, the breakthrough she was forging would soon collide with unexpected revelations, questioning not just her place in the company but the very fabric of her father's legacy. What truths lay just beyond the horizon, waiting to be unraveled in the wake of her newfound courage? The atmosphere in the office shifted as days turned into weeks following her heartfelt meeting. Sarah embraced her burgeoning leadership role, guiding her colleagues with the strength of her own openness, yet remnants of uncertainty loomed like fog. Was she on a path toward authentic self-acceptance, or merely weaving a fragile tapestry adorned with the echoes of her father's legacy? Then came the defining moment. Mr. Thompson summoned Sarah to his office. The gravity of his expression quickened her heartbeat. "Sarah, the board has noticed the impact of your recent presentations on team dynamics and morale. They're proposing you lead our next major initiative," he stated, direct and unwavering. Shock reverberated through her. Lead? The very word felt like a new garment tailored to an unfamiliar figure. Lead? "But I'm still finding my footing," she stammered, her breath escaping in a flutter. "Perhaps that's the point," he replied, allowing a brief smile to break through his seriousness. "You're not just showcasing your skills, you're building a culture of authenticity that others can relate to. You have the gift of making vulnerability a strength." Sarah's mind raced, butterflies swirling wildly. Would she seize this opportunity or retreat under the weight of expectation? The choice crystallized in front of her, like a sunbeam piercing through the clouds, illuminating a path toward professional fulfillment rooted in her own experiences. With a deep breath, she nodded, feeling the rush of decision wash over her. "I accept the offer." Immediately, a flood of responsibility swelled within her, a mix of exhilaration and dread. This wasn't merely about professional achievement, it was an invitation to forge her own identity in a space previously dominated by her father's legacy. Yet, as excitement enveloped her, a nagging thought whispered from the shadows: was she truly ready to lead, or was she still just a reflection of someone else's journey? Emboldened by her recent successes, Sarah recognized this project not just as a task, but as an opportunity for growth both personally and corporately. She gathered her research and insights over the following week, navigating through the very vulnerabilities she had embraced. Rather than hiding her flaws, she included them in her presentations. This was not only about numbers and strategy, it was about real experiences that shaped decisions. Finally, the day arrived for the project launch meeting. The conference room brimmed with anticipation, colleagues gathered around to hear her vision. As her heart raced, she recalled every moment leading up to this point, the struggles, the personal revelations, and the connections formed through vulnerability. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice firmer than she anticipated. "Today, I want to discuss not just our goals and projections but the stories that connect us as a team. When we embrace our challenges, we don't just grow, we thrive together." The room buzzed, and she felt the weight of their attention shift from mere observers to engaged participants. Sharing snippets of her own journey, how the balance of motherhood and career could often feel overwhelming, she noticed the subtle nods of agreement, the familiar expressions that mirrored her own struggles. Her colleagues responded with their stories, weaving their narratives into a collective fabric that celebrated both individuality and teamwork. A sense of camaraderie blossomed, and the weight of expectation morphed into a buoyant exchange of ideas and solutions. In that moment, a profound truth crystallized within Sarah: this was not just her journey, it was theirs too. Together, they forged a bond built on authenticity and resilience, enriching the workplace with an energy that transcended competition. As the meeting drew to a close, the air reverberated with applause, a powerful reminder of her impact. "Excellent work, Sarah. You've not only articulated our vision but also unified the team under a shared purpose," Mr. Thompson commended, his eyes gleaming with pride. The validation, so long sought after, ignited a force within her. She had not only stepped into her role as a leader but had also claimed her place in this narrative alongside her father's legacy. Her fears gave way to a burgeoning confidence. She was Sarah, not just the daughter of a man who had once inspired countless others, but a professional ready to carve out her own identity. Days turned into weeks again, and with each passing moment, Sarah not only achieved professional accolades but also embraced her vulnerabilities. She fostered an environment where honesty thrived, where colleagues stepped forward not only to share ideas but also to support one another through struggles. Results followed. The initiative she spearheaded bore fruit, a successful project that not only met corporate objectives but also resonated deeply with the team's collective spirit of resilience. Recognition trickled in from higher-ups, as strategic milestones stamped her identity clear and solid within the framework of the company. One Friday, as Sarah cleared her desk, reflecting on her journey, she felt a surge of pride surge through her veins. She had gathered strength from her past, converted uncertainty into action, and emerged a recognized leader. No longer a mere shadow of her father, she had stepped into her own light, a leader filled with honor, confidence, and authenticity uncompromised, and so, Sarah stood resolute, prepared to face whatever the future held. She had not only transformed her life, she had dedicated herself to ensuring others could find strength in vulnerability as well. As she faced the crumpled shadows of her past, a new journey beckoned, a venture filled with potential to inspire and uplift. That it is time for you to step into your own journey of authenticity and empowerment. Don't let self-doubt hold you back any longer. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it helps more people find the courage to share their journeys. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's stunning transformation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this message of empowerment. You need to champion your own journey. This is the moment to show your unwavering support. Don't wait even one more second to share the stories that inspire us all.